Hello, and
Hello.
welcome to the latest episode of the Red Pill Fiction Factory. Today we have only our second ever female guest. Her name is Nell Haynes. She's from the UK, and she has written a novel that was recently published called Conduit. Hi, Nell, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Richard. How are you?
Hot and sweaty here in Mexico. You're in Kent, I understand.
Yes,
How's it there?
The Garden of England.
Yes, indeed, and a lovely place to be at this time of year, I imagine. Tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you from, your background, and all that. Before we get onto the book, tell us about yourself personally.
Well, you know, I live in Kent. My background was banking. I worked in the city for more years than I care to remember. Left the city about 2004, did bits and bobs, and basically was a housewife. Looked after my daughter, was quite small, got to enjoy her. And as obviously she got older, I needed my own interests, and I thought about writing a book. And then the genesis of Conduit was born, and the rest is history, as they say.
Right. How long ago was the genesis process of the book?
Well, if I'm truthful, friends for years have been saying to me, now you've got to write your book. And it was going to be more of a humorous book about my life and adventures and what have you. And I think that's why quite a few of them are quite shocked that I've actually written Conduit. And its connotations, the child trafficking and all the other dreadful things that go on. But with Conduit, probably about when I first got into the Q movement, and it opened my eyes, absolutely opened my eyes. I thought I was red-pilled before then by my American stepmother in the 80s, progressing on. But this obviously ramped it up quite a bit. And with my grandmother, who was an Earth Mother, I just melted the two together and came up with Conduit.
Okay, so this was about 10 years ago you started the process?
No. About 4 years ago, I got into the Q movement. And I'd say not long after that, I thought, hey, I can really write a book and about child trafficking and what have you. Tried to work how I would approach it, and I thought, my goodness me, I could use my grandmother, I say, who was an Earth Mother, and blend the two, and started writing about 3.5 years ago.
Can you explain Earth Mother to the audience? Having read the book, I understand where you're coming from, but it's not a phrase that's familiar to everyone, I think.
No, many people aren't. Well, in the book, you know, in the first couple of pages, there's conversation between Julia and her grandmother, when the grandmother reveals that she's an Earth Mother or a conduit. Now, my grandmother, it was based on a conversation I had with my nan, Lily, who the book's dedicated to. And just literally, she blurted it out one evening, because she always called me her kindred spirit. She said, Nell, I help children or babies that have passed over, that can't accept they have passed over, and they're stuck. They're literally stuck between earth and heaven. And they just literally wash through her and go off up to heaven. And at 17, I must admit, I thought, crikey, this is a bit out there. But she said, no, I waited till you were old enough to try and understand. She said, I'm not going mad. She said, it is a thing and it does happen, and it gives me great comfort that I can do this.
Okay, yeah. The publisher describes the book as a woman's quest, this is to give the audience context, a woman's quest to rescue the child victims of human trafficking that leads her on a perilous journey fraught with danger. Will her faith in the gift of sight, inherited from her beloved grandmother, be enough to sustain her on an epic voyage of self-discovery and good conquering evil? So this is a very personal story. I mean, what you've just said from your personal life translates
Mm.
almost directly onto the page. This isn't so much a fictional work, well, it is obviously, but you're drawing heavily on your experience as a person in real life.
Well, the way I've described Conduit to a lot of people is it's a book of fiction based on a lot of fact. Obviously, the human trafficking is fact. We know that it's a heinous trade and it's prolific everywhere. And yes, obviously on a personal level with my nan, with my grandmother.
Yeah. And the title Conduit, that suggests to me not only was your grandmother a conduit, but it also refers to the trafficking side, I suppose, or it could do.
No. Conduit means a channel, and literally, she was a channel between, here and up there.
Yeah, yeah. But I think I think it works well because it has the dual meaning that the children are channeled out of, in this case, Haiti to other places. So.
And many other places, Richard.
Yeah.
Many other places.
Beyond your grandmother's experiences that she's related to you, did you, and it doesn't sound like you did, but did you ever work closely with any of these sort of charities involved or that kind?
No, that was information I gleaned from literally many hours of research. As they say, once you go down the rabbit hole, you find out an awful lot of stuff and you don't forget it. But we're talking about NGOs here and what have you, which, can be a sensitive subject.
Sure. You chose Haiti as the site of the setting of the book. There could have been other places, obviously. What was it about Haiti that appealed to you?
Once I started to research about child trafficking, Haiti kept appearing more and more, far more often than other countries. And also with Haiti, I wanted to get the American link with the Caribbean islands going up into America, so it fitted well in with the book, with the idea of the book. And also, I was hearing that Saudi Arabia is a hub and other countries, and which are totally inaccessible. At least with Haiti, you got a reasonable chance of getting there, and it was more feasible, especially for a woman traveling.
Right. And have you been there yourself, or you just?
No. I love the Caribbean, and I've been to many islands, but I have said, and I will go. I have to go because I watch so many videos. I could be a tour guide. I probably could go around Haiti blindfolded.
It is
it's a beautiful country. Beautiful country.
Yes, it's a beautiful country. It's just a terrible state.
Oh, dreadful. It's been absolutely pillaged for years, and we know in recent years by whom.
Yes. So go on. Tell us more about when you say by whom. Who you? I mean, we all have our versions, but where do you draw your sources from and what's the background?
From the internet. When you look at the rice production and the coffee and the gold rights being given by a certain former Secretary of State to her brother, and you just join the dots. It's just dreadful, absolutely dreadful. The people there do not stand a chance. The country's so rich in its own minerals and whatever, that it could be probably one of the richest country or islands in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Right. The book, the main body of the book starts with this paragraph. I just want to read it so people have an idea of what's going on. I'm going to try my best French Creole. Aidez-nous, maman, is reverberating inside my head. My rusty French is enough for me to know that they are asking for help, mother. Every night for weeks it's been the same, enough for me to understand that something was terribly wrong somewhere, but where? Then, in between, aide-nous, mama, I grasped aide-nous, mama with an investigative hat, and hat on and found that it was Haitian Creole, which narrowed down where the something terrible was actually taking place. So that's the beginning. The beginning of the main body of the work, because there is a prelude before that. Would you give us an idea of the basic plot, the main characters, and where the story goes, focusing on the story more than anything?
Yeah. The main character is a lady called Julia, a middle-aged lady who was a journalist for many years. She covered the Balkans and conflict and whatever, and semi-retired, enjoying life, and inherited from her grandmother the ability to be a conduit. And whereas normally they're silent, you don't get any noise, you just see literally faces sweeping past. They started to become vocal, and she realised that they were pleas for help. And once she'd narrowed down that it was Haitian Creole, obviously she realised that it was coming from Haiti, and thought, goodness me, I've got to try and do something about it, much to her husband's dismay. But luckily, she has a dear old friend from her uni days, Christian, who is an editor of a Washington newspaper now, old money, old American money. His father was a former ambassador to the UK, and she contacts him thinking he'll think I've really lost the plot. And he doesn't. He jumps on a plane, comes over and says, look, you know, we have tentatively tried to explore and print about child trafficking, but we're shut down at every angle from the powers that be upstairs, which we know happens. And they embark on a trip to Haiti to save children from the scourge of human traffickers. And along the way, they meet some incredible people, like-minded. And there's a little posse of them that go off. I'm not going to give the plot, it's the ending.
No, don't worry.
And yeah, it's a hazardous, perilous trip.
Yes, it is, with a bit of a love interest.
That's the book in a nutshell. 18 months of research and writing in a nutshell.
And quite a lot of action, actually, a lot of shooting and stuff for a housewife from Kent. You you know your way around the guns and the blood.
Well, the thing is, in there is Krav Maga, and I really wanted my daughter. I have one daughter, and I wanted her to learn self-defense. And I researched, because I research everything, and I kept coming up with Krav Maga. And I said, come on, you know, I'll go with you. We didn't in the end. She's too interested in horses. But that's, you know, it was just so strange how little things that I'd come across years before all came up in, you know, were perfect for the book.
Yeah.
Perfect for the book. It was almost as if everything was meant to be. That's
I must say, I got the feeling you might have been a journalist because of Julia's character and the writing.
I worked in a bank, and I didn't think banking would have quite the same
kudos
ring to it.
You credit a man called Alan in the Azores for his expertise. What was his relation to what expertise was he providing?
Oh, Alan he's one of my dearest friends, Janie, who's mentioned first of all, who kept me going when I was saying, that's it, I can't finish this book, I can't do it anymore. We used to meet up for a Costa coffee every Wednesday morning, and she would updates. And when I said, no, I can't do it, I'm reading so many terrible things, it's just awful. And she said, persevere. Well, I'm a technophobe, and I had a bit of an old dinosaur laptop. Then Paul said, look, this is obviously getting serious now, I want to get you a new laptop. So part 1, probably up to about chapter 14, was on the old laptop, and the rest is on the new one. Well, we could not merge the two. And oh gosh, and Paul is pretty clued up, on computers. So Janie said, well, Alan, who's her brother who lives in the Azores, is an absolute computer whiz kid. He'll do everything for you. So literally, we sent these two files or whatever over to the Azores, and he worked some incredible magic.
Oh, right,
And,
okay.
and as I say, it isn't an under estimation to say it wouldn't have got to the publishers without him.
Very good. Another thing I noticed is that there are several biblical quotes at the opening of many of the chapters. Is that reflection of your religious leanings, or you just felt that they suited to the book more, or what?
This was quite a hard one to equate with what some people would say, oh, that's supernatural, you know, grandmother's ability to talk to dead children. And God, I believe in God fervently. And again, it was really, really strange. When I thought, how am I going to open the book? Went to bed one night, woke up in the middle of the night, and literally the first passage, the psalm, came to me. And you just think, crikey, this was meant to be. So I got my phone out and Google, and I thought, right, that's it. That's how I'm going to open Conduit. That, you know,
divine intervention.
Exactly. As there's so many things. Richard, can't explain it. It all fell into place.
Yeah. I think the writing process does that. You draw on every aspect. Everything that's happened in your life can come up.
Gosh. And it was meant to be. I was meant to write it without a doubt.
Right. Now, I think I wanted to say, I think you're very brave to have addressed a real world topic head on, like you have, despite we've nearly done 20 shows, I think. But despite this being this channel being focused on red-pilled fiction, very few of the writers have gone head to head with real world topics and addressed them head on. Many of them will address issues through fantasy writing or space, sci-fi type things. But I think it's very important that we stick, some of us at least, to the what's happening in the real world, because it's the one that most people want to know more about. Space, the others are kind of sidelines to the main theme, fantasy and so on. But also, these are the issues. These issues are real. They are. They do need resolving.
Yeah.
You touch on it's not just child trafficking, of course, but it's there's often talk of organ harvesting. Adrenochrome is the new thing that seems to be raising its head. We've got as we speak, Ghislaine Maxwell's just been sentenced to a paltry 20 years. I mean, in America, some people are doing 500 years for running people over in Charlottesville. I remember, for example, by accident, whereas she gets 20 years for probably having been responsible for the deaths of many children, and the torture as well, and God knows what else. So, well done, first of all, for doing it, because it does take a lot to do that, and it is easier to sort of leave the major issues and go along sidelines and throw the stones from the sidelines. Where do you see us in that sense with the child trafficking? Are we getting anywhere closer? Is it getting worse? Is there any hope? Is it all just a complete waste of our time to try and do it? Because none of Ghislaine Maxwell's clients have gone or even been named, let alone gone to trial.
I know, frustrating, but I don't think we must never give up hope when it comes to children. All human trafficking is heinous, is evil, but children, you know, the most vulnerable, as I've put in the book, about in our society, who should be nurtured and protected, are seen as nothing more than toys to these sick individuals. With regards to Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm wondering, has she been singing like a canary, hence the lower prison sentence? One can hope that's the case. I do believe that there is an awful lot more going on behind the scenes. with regards to eradicating human trafficking, because let's not forget, President Trump, one of his executive orders, I think it was done in December 2017, that all proceeds and funds derived from people preying on children would be confiscated, and the ultimate penalty would be death. And that, as far as I know, that executive order still hasn't been struck off by Biden. So I honestly, and I really pray, genuinely pray that is the case, that there are incredible things going on behind the scenes, and we are watching this incredible movie, and they're all going to be rounded up and dealt with. I do honestly, I feel in my bones that this is going to happen.
Yeah,
and it's happening.
This is the QAnon, Q whatever you want to call it, theory, and I am also in a dwindling band of people who believe that something like that is happening. I am very much optimistic in the longer term for something to come out of all that, but I know that it's a difficult position to hold these days after so many years of the opposite seeming to happen. But I do, and actually the last few weeks have given some encouragement. The Roe versus Wade ruling, I don't think that would have happened under a proper Biden or Democrat administration. And there was another one yesterday about the Greens, the EPA's authority over coal mining and things. These, I think that, well, let's hope you're right. The proof will be in the pudding. I must say that the sooner the pudding comes, the better for all of us. But
I think we're all very tired and exhausted with following it for so many years. But one thing I will say, even if Q is proven to be, for want of a better word, a shill or a psyop or whatever, one thing it has done, it's taught a lot of us to question what is going on in the world. And if that is the legacy, then I'll hold my hands up and say I'm glad I was there from more or less the beginning. Because I was introduced to it by a lady in Boston in 2018. And I was, oh crikey, what's this? I've always been very interested in stuff like that. But as I say, if the legacy is that it's awakened millions of us worldwide to child trafficking, human trafficking, to the fact that the governments of this world do not have our best interests at heart, to question, question everything and believe nothing is my motto now. Well, it has been for many, many years, and I will always hold to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very, very important point. It's if it is a psyop on us, it's certainly been an expensive one for the enemy, and it's certainly brought a lot of us.
Richard, I've got to add here, if it was just a psyop and something, why expend so much energy on denouncing it? They're almost frantic in their efforts to make us all look I don't know, like some deranged fantasists or something. Why?
Why are they still chasing Trump 3 years after, 18 months after he left power, and treating him like some kind of arch enemy? If
exactly.
They had him on their side.
There's far more to it, and I'm praying that we're near the end game, and the revelations.
Q started. I don't know if you know. Q started posting again for the first time in 2 years a few days ago. I don't know if you're aware. Yeah. So. Maybe that's a sign of something changing.
A CUE, rather than a Q.
You're also distinct amongst the people who've been on the show. Not only did you, as I say, tackle the subject matter head on, but you got published. You did it's quite an impossible couple of things to achieve that, because normally the more directly you go after the real world enemy, the less likely you're to be published. But somehow you pulled off those two achievements. How was the publishing process for you?
Painful, if I'm truthful, and that's because we were, you know, as my close knit friends and Paul and everything. I don't think any of them thought I would actually get published, if I'm truthful. And I submitted it to 5 publishers, and 3 came back and said, yes, we want your book.
Is that right?
The first one came in, and I was sort of dancing around the kitchen. And about 5 hours later, the second one came in, and you're just thinking, oh, hang on a second, am I reading this right? Yeah. So from then on, painful. It was such a long, drawn-out process. They don't, because you're a first-time novelist, and they're taking a punt on you, I suppose, basically, and they're dealing with thousands of other authors at the same time. I thought, in my own naive little mind, not having had anything to do with the publishing world, that I would speak to my editor or, you know, have weekly updates. Nothing.
Nothing, no.
6 or 7 months could go past and you wouldn't hear anything. And then you'd send an email and they, well, we're working on it. Yeah, so painful. So I do feel for anybody who is embarking on the publishing process now.
But again, perseverance is the key. Yeah, the publishing industry has changed a lot. I think you used to have an editor that focused on you and knew your work well and related back to you on that topic regularly and so on. But I don't think editors exist now, really.
No, I didn't speak to one.
No, other than to really, they may have the title editor, but their real job is to focus on a few celebrities and make sure the celebrity is happy. It doesn't matter about the quality of the work so much.
Oh yeah, it's the name.
It's the name, yes.
I must add, I had a fantastic production manager, Vin Tran, sorry, and he did save the day, and he restored my faith in the publishing process. He was very attentive, because as he said, he said, your book deserves the attention. He said, it is a well-written, a well-researched book. He said, we must get it out there. But that took about 12 months to get to that. Yeah.
And he was working with Austin Macaulay, your publisher,
yes.
was he?
Yeah. But so he really did get the ball moving, really did, and came up trumps.
Very good. Tell us about the publishing house, Austin Macaulay. It's one of these new ones, is it? That
yes, hybrid something or other. Well, what it was, gosh, it's very daunting when you've written a book, because I think I've done the hard work. Now, surely this should be the easy part, as you know, you're well aware. And I looked into publishing houses, and some I liked the look of, and some I didn't. And I came up with 5, and I thought, right, okay, let's send it off. I took a chance. That's all I can say. I took a chance, and luckily 3 came back to me. I could have kicked myself, because Pegasus, one of the bigger publishing houses, came back and just as I had signed with Austin Macaulay.
Oh, right.
Pegasus was the one that I did actually want, but they said they'd left the door open for the sequel, so it'll be interesting. Oh, right. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because I am working on the sequel now.
I was going to come to that in a minute, but to get 3 out of 5 publishers to respond positively is quite remarkable, and says is a testimony to the writing.
Oh gosh, Paul was looking up the stats of getting 1 offer.
Yeah,
and then he had to get 2 offers, and then to get 3. He's everything stats with Paul and maths and what have you. Yeah, and he said it was quite astounding.
It was clever. So let's hope you take advantage of this position in the industry and make some more books for us. Now, you say you're moving on to you leave it on a cliffhanger, the Conduit, yes. And there's a very strong suggestion of a sequel, which you've just more or less confirmed. Can you tell us a little bit what you're planning and what that's going to be about? Is it related to this the novel we just read? Or? Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Because and down the bottom of the garden is where I write, and I've got a big map, big laminated map that Paul's put up for me of South America. So that's a big hint where
Okay.
I'll be going next. Yeah. So I went off to Norfolk a couple of weeks ago. So I said to Paul, I can't write. I've got so much going on. So we had a houseboat in the middle of nowhere. It was wonderful. And I wrote 6 chapters, so which is good.
And when you say, go on.
But the thing is, one chapter can flow. Another chapter, which I found with the first book, the research, just to make sure that I was right, that I wasn't making spurious claims, the research for just one chapter could take me a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's like guns, shooting guns. It's the Krav Maga, the videos I've watched of Krav Maga. And it was only a snippet in the book, but I wanted it to be perfect. I didn't want some Krav Maga expert coming on to me later and saying, well, you don't do that. It's like it's a long process.
It is. I think you have to accept that however much research you do and however competent it's done, there's always going to be someone who raises a hand and says something's wrong. But
there's always going to be critics. I've got to praise myself for that, because so far good. I've had incredible reviews and feedback.
Good. Yeah, it's all about a story at the end of the day. We're not writing textbooks for
children in school.
No. So when you say South America, that doesn't include Mexico. I'm checking the next book.
No, we're heading down to Guatemala.
Oh, not far from us.
Venezuela, big hubs of child trafficking, huge hubs.
Yeah.
And again, I said to Paul, I had quite a few, many sleepless nights after I'd researched about the child trafficking, and it's difficult to know, because you don't want to use a word that doesn't portray the evil. Because I know in the book I've said trade, because that's what they call it. It's a trade, like a commodity. It's a difficult one, but that's where there's an awful lot of activity. It goes on everywhere. We know it's in Ukraine. Go figure there. We know it's in Saudi Arabia. There's hubs all over the world, but it does appear that the South America, because these countries are so poor.
Yes, sure.
And look at after the Haiti earthquake, nobody really missed 110,000 children going missing.
Is that what it was? Oh, crikey. I shouldn't laugh, but that is.
I know, because you do, because it's so, you think it's so incredible that it isn't believable.
Yeah. All right, moving on. You're in England. I lived in England a long time ago. I haven't been back, I think it's 12 years and counting at the moment, and I don't miss it very much, I have to say. Where, on a sort of step out of your writing cloak, and how do you see the state of the country at the moment?
Oh, where do I start?
Yeah.
We have I'd love to, I don't think I should say what I really think. When we have somebody like Boris Johnson, who I have never, ever trusted nor liked, in charge of us, you just think, heaven help us.
Yeah. And well, you have a remarkably firm grasp, it seems to me, on the political sphere in general, but it's not just Britain, is it? It's the whole of the West seems to be in.
Well, it's Macron, it's Trudeau, it's Ardennes, it's and we know they're all WEF puppets.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing you see. My stepmom, in the 80s, said to me, "Oh my gosh, there's this really evil creature called George Soros." I didn't know a thing about George Soros, and goodness me, I think Mary was born before her time, a bit like my grandmother.
Yeah.
Because now you know, or you hear of Antifa and all the NGOs that supposedly go in to help people, and they're all funded by the likes of Soros. It makes you wonder who is pulling all these puppets in power's strings.
Certainly does. Well, you're obviously very passionate.
Schwab.
Schwab,
Gosh.
yeah.
Mm.
You're obviously very passionate about it all, and in
Oh, I
winding
am.
up.
I love my country, and
Well, that's it.
it's breaking my heart to see what is happening.
Yeah, I sympathise totally, and there's many people around the world exactly the same feelings. We're receiving a lot of them here in Mexico. They're just fleeing their home countries. They can't bear to watch anymore, and they know where it's heading.
Just like the US, I have such a deep affinity and love with the US. I first went when I was 17. I flew out on my own to Atlanta, Georgia, to see my father and his wife, and fell in love with it instantly. I just absolutely love America. And to see now, because when I first went, it was the Reagan years, the really good years, and then you gradually see the decline through Clinton and the supposedly good people, the Bushes, which we know otherwise, and then on to the rest. And I just think, oh, this wonderful country, rich in so much. I think they want to make it into a Venezuela. I think that is the goal.
Oh, I'm certain of it, or worse, Venezuela on steroids.
Yes, absolutely.
Unfortunately, but listen, the game isn't over yet. We've still got some time, and I think we've yet to play our best cards, let's say.
But I think the ace is up the sleeve, well and truly, and it will come out
at the right time. Well, I'd like to wind up by saying harness that passion and keep it going, and let's see many more books come out from Kent, gosh. From the garden in Kent.
Yes, it's down the garden in all weathers.
Well done. It's a terrific read. I recommend it to everyone. The book is called Conduit, and Nell Haynes is the author. I'll put a link below. And thank you very much, Nell, for coming on the show. It's been a delight to talk to you.
Richard, I can't thank you enough, and it's been a delight to talk to you too.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Take care. Thank you.